This is my GT rig.
Nice little medals from the World Finals.
I play Gran Turismo.
All the shirts.
And a big old hammer
This is pretty useful.
for when you get annoyed at losing a race.
This is my rig.
My whole setup.
Beautiful trophy.
My GT rig. My rig.
Here comes Miazano on the floor. Oh, no! Big contact there.
Absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely amazing. But they're still side by side. It's a drag race to the line. Who's going to get it?
Hello and welcome to the Top 16 Superstars show for the EMEA region for the 2020 FIA Gran Turismo Championships. Seems like a lifetime ago, doesn't it, that we were back in Sydney for World Tour 1. Things are very different now, but we're here, albeit virtually, for the Top 16 Superstars show. My name is Tom Brooks. Alongside me today, Jimmy Broadbent. Jimmy, my goodness, I mean, it has been a long time since Sydney, hasn't it? But it is good to be back and commentating on some exciting racing.
Yeah, it has been a while. It does seem like a very long time ago that we were standing together in Sydney. And as you can see, things are a bit different now. We've become floating heads. So I guess I'm not sure if this is a promotion or not. But as a result, of course, of the real-life events, we can't be together, unfortunately. But again, that saves Tom from my swift elbows mid-broadcast. So important thing is we're back, and we have some GT action to call. I think it's a good day.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to the lack of elbowing over the course of this broadcast. But we've got two races coming up for you in the Nations Cup and the Manufacturer Series. The Nations Cup is taking place at the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya in Spain in Group 2 cars. Then we move over to the Manufacturer Series at the Dragon Trail Seaside Circuit, exclusive to GT Sport. That is taking place in Group 3 machinery. And of course, the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya circuit, Jimmy, just based outside of Montmeló in Spain. It's a track that's full of unique twists and turns and is a bit of a favourite for some drivers.
Yeah, definitely, of course. Best known from the Formula 1 racing, the Spanish GP. Catalunya, one of those tracks where corner exit is everything. Because overtaking around here is extremely difficult due to the nature. There it is on your screen right now. Lots of very fast-flowing corners around here, which means that tyre wear is going to be something to watch out for our superstars. Very easy to overheat the front tyres, scrubbing them through corners like T3. Best place to overtake down at T10 at the end of the second sector there, and trying to get a run off T16, the final corner, down towards T1. Not much elevation change around here, about 30 metres or so, but tyre wear is going to be key round here, so make sure you keep your tyres alive if you want to fight at the end.
Well, we've had qualifying for the Nations Cup for these drivers, Jimmy. Rick Kevelam, the Dutch driver, we're used to seeing him in our World Tour events. He qualified on pole position, and you're going to guide us round his pole lap at this circuit, aren't you?
I am. Yeah, great to see Rick performing well and qualifying towards the front. It's a bit of a different one for him, but here we are on board then in our Group 2 car coming around the last corner at Catalunya. Good to get a good run out of here. We might have a draft from the fellow in front there coming down the back straight. You can see the speed building on the right hand side, 160 mile an hour, about 170 mile an hour or so, 175 before we break towards T1. Look to the markers to the left here. Get to the 100 metre more, hit the anchors there, and then chuck the car to the inside. Don't use too much of that curb on the inside. It can settle the car. But also, it can also make the corner a bit shorter, of course. T3, hug the inside like your favourite aunt, as Martin Brundle would say, and let the car drift out to the left-hand side of the circuit. Nice and easy. We are on a qualifying run here, so we can afford to really thrash these tyres coming through to T4. This corner goes on forever when you're going around it yourself. And now we go downhill towards T5. Very easy to snatch a brake down here if you're not careful. So easy on that brake pedal, and then easy on the throttle on exit as well. Lots of grip in this Group 2 car, lots of aero too, so you can really throw the car through the corner and expect it to stick. So we're going to drop down into third gear, coming up the hill here, back up to fourth. Now, watch out for that sausage curb on the exit of the right-hander. Favourite corner on the circuit, this one. You have to throw the car to the right, hope it will stick, touch the curb on exit, and then get ready for the heaviest braking zone on the circuit. Again, looking to the 100 metre board on the left, on the right even, hit the anchors. Using a lot of curb on the inside is Rick there. Usually that would slow the car down, but he seems very confident in it, so working out very well. Again, another very long right-hander here. That front left tyre taking an absolute beating through here before we come into the final chicane. Used to be a bit of a faster corner, this one, but now It's a chicane instead. A little bit of oversteer there and exit. Grabbed a bit too much curb, did Rick. Same through here. Straight lines the chicane. And now it's full throttle to the line. And that's what a pole lap at Catalunya looks like. Well done, Rick.
Well, I really think commitment is key there at this circuit, Jimmy. And Rick Evelyn showing that in particular in that final sector where he was just getting that switch of opposite lock coming into that penultimate corner.
Yeah, you'd be fooled thinking those last corners didn't exist the way that Rick just straight lined them, of course. But yeah, that's what you have to do in these races. You have to take every possible inch of tarmac, and Rick did that and a little bit more as well and got in pole.
Yeah, it was a very, very committed lap there from the Dutch driver. Let's see how he gets on under racing conditions as we get ready then to head into the Nations Cup for the top 16 superstars. Let's go then to the grid for the start of the Nations Cup race, and here is how the drivers will line up in the Group 2 machines for the EMEA region of this top 16 superstars race. It's Rick Evelyn, the Dutchman, that starts on pole position. We saw his pole lap just a few moments ago. Valerio Gallo, the Italian, lines up alongside him in P2. What's he going to be able to do from there? His fellow Italian, Giorgio Mangano, is in third position on the grid. And alongside him, Baptiste Beauvoir, our hot pick for this race. More on that in just a few moments' time. P5, Markus Kononen from Finland. Keep an eye out for him. He's been pretty quick as of late. And then next up is Noisov. Skabilia, the Frenchman, in P7. And alongside him is Fenoy. Keep an eye out for the Italian from P8 on the grid. The next row is Murdoch. Will Murdoch lines up there, the British driver. And then Dembilio, the Spaniard, is in P10, rounding out that part of the grid. Martin Grady lines up in P11 in the very pink liveried machine. Carlos Salazar is in P12, the Portuguese driver. P13 is Nicolucci. And then alongside him on that row of the grid is Jose Serrano. You know how quick he can be. So that is our grid for the start of this race. And Jimmy, we were mentioning our top pick for this one is going to be Baptiste Beauvoir. Starting on the medium compound of tyres from P4. That's going to be an interesting strategy call.
Yeah, quite interesting to see him going for that. You usually see the people at the front of the grid go for the soft compound to get a fast breakaway, but Baptiste's obviously running on an alternate strategy from that as well. And this is of course a Nations Cup where you do have free choice of car, and it seems very much so that the choice of car here is the Nissan GTR Group 2 car. Nothing else here, of course, so a bit of a level playing field in that aspect, but I'll be interested to see how these strategies play out.
Yeah, it certainly will be. Strategy is going to be very interesting in this one. We're expecting 4 to 5 stops potentially, only about 4 or 5 laps on every compound of tyres. And a reminder, they must use each compound, the soft, medium and the hard tyre. So then, the drivers filtering their way round to the timing line. Round 3 of the top 16 superstars for the FIA Gran Turismo Championships for the EMEA region about to get underway. Rick Evelyn will lead the field over the timing line as the race gets underway and the drivers head down towards the first corner for the first time of asking, all darting into the slipstream as they try and get an advantage over their fellow competitors. Of course, Rick Evelyn is the driver who's making a hole in the air for everybody else, and they're weaving before they come under braking, but down into T1, Evelyn, as expected, holds on to his lead. Gallo followed by Mangano there. Everybody taking it very gingerly through those first couple of corners, and I'm not surprised either because they've got to get those tyres up to temperature in these opening parts of the lap. But Evelyn doing a really good job there, Jimmy, of holding off the charge so far of Valerio Gallo.
Yeah, look, just like a real-life Super GT race there. They're all weaving going down the T1 there, getting those tyres on, as you say. But yes, it's Rick Evelyn leading the field right now. Gallo second, Mangano third. They're breaking away a tiny bit from 4th position. Baptiste Beauvoir, as we expected, given that he's on that medium compound of tyre. These top 3 will break away, but they also have to be an element of working together here as well. When you're following this closely in a car like this Group 2 car, lots of downforce in this thing, so following closely means you're going to be getting a lot of dirty air, so hopefully they can contend with that early on, and Baptiste Beauvoir behind can try and keep these soft guys behind for as long as possible. So coming down into the hairpin there, great place to overtake there if you're close enough to do so. Your order still stays Evelyn, Gallo, Mangano. Kononen now actually has overtaken Baptiste Beauvoir down to the hairpin there. We just missed that on our screens, and you can see now we're looking at that battle now, 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th all together as we come into the final chicane. Used to be a lot fast this corner, of course, very fast right hander, now slow down a bit to add in another overtaking opportunity, but Kononen comes out of the lead there. Baptiste Beauvoir only losing 1 place in the first lap, and given that he's on that medium tyre, not too bad.
Not bad at all. You can see the drivers on the hard compound of tyres trying to get them off early doors. So Zembidio, Serrano, the two Spaniards on home soil, come in, as well as Fenoy and Murdoch there. So the Italian and the Briton also in the pit lane. Everybody out of the 4 drivers, aside from Murdoch going on to the medium compound of tyres. Murdoch goes on to the soft compound of tyres. So nobody else out there left on those hard tyres. We're used to seeing this in these strategic races here, Jimmy. Everybody wanting to get off those hard tyres as soon as they possibly can and run a combination of medium and softs for the remainder of this race.
Yeah, I think it would be nice to see the pace of the hard tyre slightly increase, because it's a shame we see it just thrown away pretty much at the start of every race like this. But that is the strategy. So get rid of the hard compounder tyre, get that mandatory usage checked and got rid of, and then get onto the medium or soft compounder tyre, which just runs, of course, that bit faster. I'd be interested to see how long these guys can make these tyres last around here as well, given the nature of the circuit. Very easy to wear the tyres around here. So good to keep that in mind. So we're on lap 2 now. We're with Sibilia, which I'm probably saying incorrectly. We were discussing this before the race, weren't we, Tom?
Well, you are, because he's a Frenchman, but he's got an Italian-sounding surname as well. But he's close up on the back of his fellow compatriot of Baptiste Beauvoir, who was our hot pick in this race, but he's gone backwards off the start. He started in P4, is now down in P5, and is being harried potentially to fall down to P6. Gabilio, if he can get a good exit through this final corner, get a good launch as we ride on board with him now, that could be a good opportunity for him to take advantage of that slipstream. The disadvantage for him is, of course, that Beauvoir has the slight toe of Marcus Connaughton just in the front of your shot. Of course, different tyre compounds here between Beauvoir and Scabilia. That will become evident as they go into the corners, because Scabilia is going to have more grip underneath him with that softer compound.
Yep, definitely. And whilst Baptiste Beauvoir is going backwards, as you mentioned, John, it's on the medium tyre, and he is the first of the medium runners. Scabilia there goes very wide, grabs a bit of that Astra, not very grippy out there. They're going to launch up the inside. That doesn't really give Baptiste that much room. That's fair racing room there. There's a car's width on the inside. Baptiste, so will have the inside for this next left hand. He doesn't quite have a tyre down braking around the outside, or attempts to anyway, goes Scabilia. He's now going to be run out of road by Baptiste Beauvoir. Just gives him enough room. Nice, respectful, clean racing there, and a great overtake.
That was fantastic from Scabilia there, getting the brilliant exit out of turn 5 of Sayat. That softer compound of tyre evidently got more grip. You can see that quite significantly on your screen, and now he sits in P5. So Scabilia just behind Connaughton by 1.8 seconds. It'll be interesting to see if he can close that gap down. Lap time last time around was a little bit slower, but he was, of course, stuck behind Beauvoir for the vast majority of that lap. So I'll keep an eye out for the lap times and just see how that changes over the remainder of the next couple of laps or so. Meanwhile, Rick Kevelum leading the way, 1.7 seconds out in front, but here is the battle going on for P2 between Valerio Gallo and Giorgio Mangano, the two Italian drivers sitting half a second apart from one another. Gallo last time around was a 135.5. In fact, I say that changes to a 135.7, whereas Mangano a 135.689, so only a couple of hundredths of a second faster there, Jimmy. So those two match pretty evenly on pace as Grady and Beauvoir now in the pit lane.
Yeah, opting to get onto that hard compounder tyre. The guys at the back there. Here's Moisov just defending right now from Salazar, coming down into T1. And just a note on that battle for the lead of Mangano and Gallo is that Gallo's actually fallen back pretty much just outside of the slipstream range now of Rick Kevelum, so he's not going to be getting that toe down the straight that he was getting before, which might allow Mangano a chance to get by and then try and chase down the Dutch driver currently leading the race. So again, watching this field of Nissan GTRs go around at the moment. Moisov leading Salazar down to the bottom of the circuit again. This is the lowest point of the circuit down here. Then you start the climb back uphill again with this awesome sequence of corners. It's a kind of medium speed left-hander here. You have to try and straight line as much as possible. Watch out for that sausage curb on the right. I've had a race ended by that before. And then chuck the car into this flat-out blind right-hander, and try not to use too much of the Astra on the left, otherwise you end up going a bit wide into the gravel. Great place to overtake down here, but Salazar erring on the side of caution for now. You'd think he'd be a bit more aggressive, Tom, on that soft tyre, but Moisov doing a good job keeping him there.
Yeah, Nikita Moisov, I was just about to say that, driver from the Czech Republic. We haven't seen him so far in the Top 16 Superstars event in 2020, but doing a good job at the moment. The Czech driver is checking his mirrors all the time because Salazar is really trying to find his way through into that chicane. I can hear the collective sigh from you over there, Jimmy.
It's audible discomfort there. I didn't like that. Anyway, back to the race.
Moisov going defensive though.
Yeah, he's heard that. So he I think what he's trying to do is just try and keep Salazar there for now. I mean, at the moment, he's doing really well in that medium compounder tyre. Now, we've had... so that's interesting. So Beauvoir came into the pit lane, went onto the hard compounder tyre from the medium, and then immediately went onto the soft compounder tyre. In fact, the bottom 5 drivers have already made 2 stops. So they've already got rid of all their tyres for now, and are maybe going to try and run soft to the end. I think maybe what we're seeing here is, I guess, the Miyazono tactic, which is come into the pit lane and just get your stops out of the way, and then just soft till the end. Have an extra stop in there and try and offset that pit stop with just pace on track.
Well, we were discussing this earlier, weren't we? The Alain Prost theory, as you were mentioning about Donington 1993, when he came into the pits like 7 times, but he was on the right tyre at the right time, which could prove to be the right strategy for these drivers.
It could be, of course. Moisov now is actually the only driver out there on the medium tyre, so it seems that these guys have obviously done a bit of testing and found that the soft tyre is the one to be on around here. And the person in the best position right now is probably this man, Baptiste Beauvoir, because he is the lead runner who's done 2 stops. He's closing into the back of Nicolosi in front as well. How quick he gets by him and this little pack of cars up here is going to really determine how the race goes for Beauvoir. But this is the risky run, as Rick Kevelam and Gallo and Mangler, they all come into the pit lane now. So our top 4 runners are now coming onto the pit lane and going from soft to soft. So I guess what they're doing is they're going to go for the Miyazono strat, as we said before. They're going to come in, get onto that soft tyre, and then probably in the last 2 laps, come in for a medium, get rid of that, come onto the hard, get rid of that.
It's not gone well for Nikita Moisov, by the way. He was on the medium tyres. He's gone to the hard now, but he's picked up a penalty, as you can see, with that flashing red dot next to his name on that tower graphic on the left-hand side of your screen. Now, Beauvoir in P8, Salazar very close indeed in front of him. Now, Salazar is going to be really on the defensive here, trying to halt off the charge of Beauvoir. Of course, Beauvoir is on a fresher set of soft tyres, as we can see on the screen at the moment, and significantly quicker in terms of his pace as well. Just to give you an idea of how different their pace was, Salazar, of course, having made that pit stop last time around, lost a bit of time, but it was a 1:34 flat for Beauvoir, so he is flying out there on these tyres at the moment.
Yeah, he would have really wanted to come out, or have Salazar come up behind him after the pit stop, because he had about a 2-3 second gap in front of him to kind of drive into on that fresh set of tyres. But now he's got Salazar in front as well, who's going to be just producing a ton of dirty air from the back of that GTR in front. So not quite ideal for Beauvoir, but getting a little bit sideways there, just going to show that while these cars do have downforce, they are not planted as in the background there. Moisov serves his penalty. But it's going to be interesting. We've got 2 different strategies taking place here. People who are getting rid of the tyres as quick as they can, then just going soft to the end, and those who are having that soft at the start of the race and then going for the harder compound towards the end so they can defend better. Overtaking here is not easy, Tom. It's a lot of fast-flowing corners.
Yeah, it certainly is. Murdoch into the pit lane on the soft compound, so you can see him changing over to exactly the same combine of tyres. Now, Rick Kevelam, what are you going to be able to do? Because he had a bit of an advantage over Valerio Gallo, was comfortably a bit faster than him. Those 2 last time around on their first flying lap on those soft tyres, fresher soft tyres, 1:33.6s for the pair of them. So looking pretty evenly matched as things stand at the moment, but the thing with this race is it's going to be the long man's game. It's almost a high-speed game of chess, this, as to who is going to blink first at the right time with the strategy, and how it's going to work out between them. We're not going to really know until the closing stages.
Tell you what, I've not had the pleasure of trying to move chess pieces at 250 kilometres an hour. Maybe I'll give that a go next time. Maybe when this is over, I'll go give that a go. But old Slick Rick here in first place, doing a really good job. The gap has been about 1.7 seconds, 1.8 seconds the entire time. I'm just managing that gap at the moment, and of course managing the tyre at the same time. All these guys driving around now, I can pretty much guarantee they've all got an extra 2 temps, 3 temps in the car. They wanted to push it, but when you're doing that, you're exponentially wearing the tyres. So it's a good job to kind of drive within that limit and drive a little bit slower than you would normally, just to keep the tyres alive. And then, as I'm saying that, Rick is just putting out more of a gap. It's a great drive from Rick. I think he's someone who's had a bit of a hard time in the World Tour events so far, not really quite coming to his own. But here, at home, he's doing a great job.
Yeah, it really is looking very comfortable out there, is Rick Kevelam. We ride on board with the Dutchman now. We saw Valerio Gallo actually just going through that chicane in the background of his shot, coming through that final sector last time around, just looking a little bit out of shape there, so clearly trying to push the limits and close that gap down to his race leader at the moment, his nearest rival on track being, of course, Rick Kevelam. And you can just see there, Kevlin, we saw him so aggressive on that qualifying lap. By comparison here at the moment, Jimmy, just looks to be a little bit calmer as he's not trying to take too much life out of that tyre. For example, going through this right-hander here, just one singular move with the steering wheel, not soaring away like he was on a qualifier.
Yeah, the thing with these kind of downforce-based cars is you drive with your fingertips. You drive it like you're being nice and smooth and precise. You have to be as smooth as possible, because anytime you're sliding, anytime you've got any sort of slip in the tyre, you aren't getting that max amount of downforce you had before. Not to say you can't drive with a little bit of slide if you're feeling a little bit saucy out there, but I'd say probably don't do it. Probably try and keep it under wraps, try and keep it pointing the right way, and try and keep the tyre gripped as much as we can. There's a gap behind coming down now, slightly 1.5 seconds behind to Valerio Gallo. Someone else who's not done too well at the World Tour events, but doing well here as well.
Yeah, exactly right there, Valerio Gallo, you were saying, Jimmy. We've seen flashes of speed from the Italian driver, but nothing really that sort of concreted him at the front of the World Tour events over the last, say, 6 months or so, for example. But it will be good to see him doing well and doing a good job of holding on to P2, keeping that gap at a constant. His sector time's very similar to Rick Kevelem's. In fact, in the third sector of that lap, he was the fastest man overall, only by a couple of hundredths of a second, I should state, but still doing a good job as things stand at the moment. The man who's really on the move here, Jimmy, is Carlos Salazar in P6. He's just closing that gap down step by step to Scabidia in P5. It's coming down to 1.1 seconds. You can see there Salazar on your screen at the moment, and it's now down to nearly under a second between these two. So Salazar's clearly pushing quite a lot at the moment in these mid stages.
Yeah, I think at the moment just trying to get onto the back of Scabidia in front and use a little bit of that toe, because the toe round here is worth quite a bit of time down the straights. It really is. So it's good to have that on the straights. Of course, conversely, we've said it before as well, you get a little bit of the wash through the corners where the downforce isn't quite there as it would be if you were driving on your own. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, really, but I think the toe does help out more than you know. Of course, Baptiste Beauvoir has been kind of taken with him, about 1.3 seconds behind there as well. You notice, if you look up and down the field, the minimum gap we're seeing is about 1.2, 1.3 seconds, because that's where the dirty air starts to take hold of the car. So you want to kind of try and drive outside that, really, to avoid scrubbing those tyres. And it seems that we've already had our first free stopper. Serrano there at the bottom of the pack, I think, trying something a little bit different, because he's not really doing so well at the moment. But I think that's indicative of what we're going to see with the leaders later on in the race.
Just saw Salazar go a little bit deep into turn 10 there. That would have cost him a couple of hundredths of a second. The man I'm keeping an eye on, actually, is Nikita Moisov. We were mentioning him earlier on. He's down there in P12, but he was running a very different strategy to everybody else. He went onto the hard tyre at the end of his first stop, just for a lap or so, but he's just a little bit out of sync with everybody else. He's on a fresher, soft tyres now compared to his fellow competitors, so we'll keep an eye and see whether his pace is going to be strong. Gallo into the pits onto the soft tyres once again, so he's going to go presumably hard to then medium towards the closing stages of this one. Beauvoir and Fenoy also in the pit lane here as well, and a few other drivers also making their stops here. Interestingly, everybody else going for softs, aside from Nicolucci there, the Austrian driver, and Marcus Nicolucci just going onto the medium tyres in the mid stages here.
I'm not sure if he's taken his medium tyre yet. Maybe he's now opting to get that out of the way, but if he's already got the medium tyre out of the way, maybe he's missed a beat there, old Nicolucci. But meanwhile, battle for third and fourth now as Gallo comes out the pit lane on the fresh set of those soft compound tyres. Connaughton's still on an old set, and we know how quickly these tyres are wearing around here. It seems that we will expect at least one more pit stop from everyone who's on a fresh set of tyres as of now. So it really is tricky out there to keep the tyres alive, and that's just part of Catalunya. Especially that front left tyre takes an absolute beating around this circuit, and very easy to have it fall away from you if you're being just a little bit too aggressive. Connaughton running in fourth right now. He owes a stop over Valerio Gallo in front. And Mangano, the thing is, Gallo is only 2.5 seconds or so behind Mangano with a pit stop. So obviously Gallo looking quite good right now, looking quite good for the race.
Yeah, he's had good pace over the course of this one. I've been keeping a watchful eye on his lap times. Last time around, of course, isn't representative of what his lap times are, but they've been very consistent, very close to the front runners. And speaking of the front runners, Kevelem and Mangano now coming to the pit lane, so a little bit out of sync. And where is Gallo going to emerge? No fuel to take on board for these drivers, it's just tyres, but this is going to be pretty crucial here for Valerio Gallo. He's going to come out behind Rick Kevelem, but does he leapfrog Giorgio Mangano? I think he does, so he's now up into P2 once again here for Gallo. So this is looking pretty promising, and he's closer than he was to Kevelem as well.
Yeah, definitely, and he would have hoped to have just a little bit more time to chase down Kevelem into T1 there, but Dutchman obviously had a big enough of a gap, but that's the undercut we're seeing there. Those a fresh set of soft tyres versus a set that are pretty much done and dusted. So I think we'll probably see Kevlin put away a bit again now, because Valerio is in the dirty air, so he's probably going to fall back a tiny bit. But a bit of progress there made on strategy. Mangano, by the way, has gone onto that medium compounder tyre to get that out of the way. He still has all three of these guys still have the hard tyre yet to use, and Kevlin and Gallo still have to use a medium tyre as well. So there's still a lot of strategy to be had here, and unfortunately my poor small brain is struggling to keep up with it all, so we'll do our best.
Yeah, but to be honest with you, what I'd love to have seen is what we see in the World Tour events, where they have a minimum tyre time to use them on, essentially. It's easier in the World Tour events because, of course, it's stewarded live, unlike with these top 16 Superstars events. But where we have a minimum tyre time where they have to use it for, say, 4 or 5 laps, then you've got fewer stops, and it's a much easier race to follow than these ones, because it's all sort of all over the place. We're expecting 4 or 5 stops, but they can use the tyres for 1 lap, and there's nothing to penalise them essentially here at the moment. So I don't know, it kind of takes a little bit of the element of not strategy out of it, because it adds it to a certain extent, but it takes some of the excitement away, I think.
I love the selfishness of us as commentators there. It's like, make it easier for us to follow. But just on tyre wear, we haven't really mentioned it, by the way, but the tyre wear multiplier is set at 9 times. Again, I always like to say 1 lap on these soft tyres gives you 9 laps worth of wear, and that is, you're doing almost a half race distance, a half real life race distance on a set of tyres before you chuck them into the pits and get a new set. So that's why there's such a big difference between guys coming out of the pit lane on a fresh set and those who have been out there for a little while. Coming back to the race for a second though, this is the race we've seen pretty much for the entire race. Scabilia and Salazar, they're back together again. Inseparable, these guys. Baptiste Beauvoir, who's currently had the most stops of anyone, has managed to jump both of these guys. He's now up into 5th position, and about 4 seconds or so behind Connaughton, who is ahead. I think it's fair to say he's probably on a fresher set, given that he's made more pit stops, so we expect to see him closing in on the Finnish driver in front. But maybe he's played a blinder here, but even so, he's still got quite a big gap between him and the leaders, so we'll see if it comes off for him.
It'll be interesting as well when he gets into that dirty air. We've been mentioning it quite a lot over the last few laps, Jimmy. Just to give us an example of a bit more of what that dirty air is all about, because we talk about it a lot and it washing out the front tyres, but it's Beauvoir really pushing the limits there and just kicking up a bit of gravel in the final sector. But just what sort of an effect does it have if you're driving in that dirty air to the car in front?
We have to think that all these cars are designed to run through clean air that is not being disturbed in any way. And when you're driving one of these cars with a ton of downforce, the reason it has all those wings and cool shapings on the bonnet and the body, etc., is to channel the air through the car in the most efficient way possible, and which then helps push the car to the ground. Downforce, as you guys will all know by now. And if you have a car in front of you doing that, when you then approach the same air, it's already disturbed, so you go through it and you aren't going to be getting that same level of downforce, so the air isn't going to be going over the car in the same way. But conversely, of course, if you're following someone down a straight and they're punching a hole in the air for you, you then have less air resistance going down the straight, so you can get a bit more speed. So as we said before, it's a bit of double-edged sword, and it's why we're seeing the guys not really get closer than 1.2, 1.3 seconds to within each other before really trying to push into the overtake zone. Because when you're in that zone, you're trying to turn the car in, you just don't have the same grip at the front. The front tyres scrub, and given the 9 times tyre wear multiplier, you can't really do that for very long without really being punished.
There you go, Jimmy Broadbent with the accurate explanations as ever. So just looking at Baptiste Beauvoir. More by luck than judgment, I think, isn't it? Just riding a P5 there is Baptiste Beauvoir. Still looking at this battle going on between Scabilia and Salazar at the moment. It's been the talking point really over the course of this race. It's just been ebbing and flowing ever so slightly over the last couple of sectors or so. And Salazar, I think you can see he's been pushing very hard, and I think he might be coming towards the end of the usable life of those soft tyres. He just begins to make a few little mistakes and is just getting a little bit squirrely on the exit of a few corners, so we'll keep an eye out and see whether it increases once again. But he's in that dirty air and there's kind of a limited amount that he can do as Fenoy comes into the pit lane then. So that's the Italian, Marcus Fenoy, into the pits. 3 drivers with the first name of Marcus in this race, by the way. That's nice and easy for us to follow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still going to get it wrong, as I always do. I just need someone to give me a slap whenever I get it wrong, to be honest. But this is what I was talking about, dirty air there. You can hear those front tyres just screaming for mercy going around T3 there. But Salazar is just trying to get close enough so he can make a move. Again, you see here, just overshooting it because he hasn't quite got that same downforce. Downforce also assists with braking as well. You know, in some of these cars, just letting off the accelerator at full speed is like hitting the brakes in a standard family saloon. So you get a lot of braking potential from that downforce, and again, when that's being disturbed, it's being taken away. But this is pretty much an example of what you should be doing if you're not able to get any closer. Just drop out of it and then go from there. But you can't get close enough in the straights, even with that slipstream.
Lap 14 out of 19 then for this top 16 Superstars race. Just looking a bit further down the order, Fennoy there, very close to Martin Grady. That's for P10, and he's just about to find his way past, I think, is the Italian driver. Those two going very close on circuit, fewer than 1/10 of a second separating them. Valerio Gallo into the pit lane as Salazar's getting all sorts of out of shape, as is Scabilia as well. This is getting pretty interesting here. So Gallo goes onto the medium tyres then for the closing stage, and Salazar spins it round out of the final corner. Is he going to come into the pit lane? And that is an absolute disaster for Carlos Salazar, because he was driving so strongly. He's going to go into the pit wall here as well. That's not helping his charge, and a simple mistake has cost him very, very dear indeed.
You hate to see it, man. I mean, that basically what happened there is he just got on the throttle a bit too aggressively coming out of the right hand, clipped the curb, and that together made it all go wrong. And the real shame is he couldn't quite spin it round to face the pit lane entry. He just hit the wall, and that would have been insult to injury. And I'm sure there's some very flavourful Portuguese being uttered at the moment by Salazar, but that's how it goes sometimes, and he'll learn from that, of course. But pretty embarrassing, I imagine, for him.
Yeah, that is very disappointing there. He's now out on the medium tyres, but he lost so much time as a result of that incident. Meanwhile, Martin Grady, he's made a pit stop. He was very close, as I mentioned, just a couple of moments before that spin to Fennoy in P8. He has now got Moisov very close behind. And Moisov, of course, was that driver I was mentioning earlier on who was a little bit out of sync with everybody else. He's now on the soft competitive tyres, has been on them for a few more laps than Grady, but he's made one fewer pit stop here as well.
I'm not going to lie to you, Brooks. I kind of forgot Mike was in this race. He's been completely anonymous. he's just been going round to the back. So I think maybe he's trying a different strategy, it seems, to everybody else on his fourth stop now, as we're getting some more pit stops at the front of the field. So right now, Mangano leads. From Gallo. No, he doesn't, sorry. Rick Kevlam still has the lead. Apologies, timing was a little bit slow to update there. So Rick Kevlam's out, and he still needs to run the hard tyre. Reminder, all three of these guys still need to run the hard tyre at some point during this race to meet the minimum requirement for tyre usage. You can use it for as long or short as you like, but you have to run it for at least a lap. And they all have to do that so far. Importantly for Valerio Gallo, Mangano is still up ahead, even with this third stop. So really what Gallo needs to do now, get by as quick as he can on these medium tyres. They'll be a lot fresher than Giorgio Mangano's in front there, so we can then try and chase down Rick Kevlam somewhat. But the gap now, and they're both on the same pit stop between Kevlam and Gallo, is now up to about 4 seconds from about 1.2 at the start of the race. So Rick looking very good here.
Salt into the wounds for Carlos Salazar, meanwhile, in a compound of fortunes. He's down in P14, has picked up a nice penalty there as well, just for insult to injury. Meanwhile, just looking at this battle going on between the two Italian drivers, you could throw a blanket over them coming down towards P10, couldn't you? They're so close on track, running bumper to bumper. Great amount of respect, and it's almost telepathic, because they're able to work out where the other's going to be at any given time. It's such a joy to just watch them being able to run in such close combat to one another.
Yeah, you really got to watch out for those blanket-throwing telepathic Italians, man. They'll sneak up on you. I never knew where that phrase came from. But saying that, Mangano's coming to the pit lane, so he's done his job. He's held up Gallo for as long as possible on the medium compound. Now we'll go to a fresh set of our Michelin hard compound tyre. Out he goes now, so he has to use that for a lap. So I don't know what we'll see here, given there's only a couple of laps remaining. Do you stay out on the hard compounder tyre and just try and struggle bus it to the end, or do you come in and go on that soft tyre for the last couple of laps and then really go as quick as possible? It's hard to say here, but that means that out of our top three drivers, Mangano is the first to go onto the hard tyre. if I were him and I'm going to drive that to the end now, I would have tried to have left that into the last possible moment, coming onto the last lap really, because now he's going to have a lap and a half on this hard compounder tyre, which we know is quite a bit slower than the rest of the tyres here, compared to Gallo and Kevlam, who are out there on a faster tyre. So I think really Mangano shot himself in the foot a bit here.
Yeah, it could be interesting. The thing is as well, he's got Marcus Condon behind him. Again, that could be an advantage. You could use the slipstream here if Condon does get by, but of course the converse of that is that we were mentioning he'll be stuck in that dirty air. That is the case for Condon at the moment, but you can see significantly how much less grip Mangano has got over Condon. Down towards turn 10 we go, and hard on the brakes, and just even on the brakes there you can see how much Condon closed up. Hard versus medium tyres. There's no question which one has got more grip at the moment. Beauvoir, meanwhile, in the background, the driver incidentally who set the fastest lap of this race quite a while ago even, I should say, is in P5 and ready to take advantage. He's on the softer compound of tyres, so he's in an even better position to try and attack.
I think he can get a podium out of this if he's done his tyre strategy now. So I think he's looking really good as Baptiste Beauvoir. I think I just spied Conan into the pit lane, so did you see him peel in there? And now Baptiste Beauvoir on a intensely faster tyre than Giorgio Mangano is hunting down the Italian with 2 laps to go here at Catalunya. And to be honest, with that sort of tyre advantage, it's only going to be a matter of time, I think. Let's see what Giorgio Mangano can do. Can he defend from the Frenchman behind him? We'll have to wait and see. But here's going to be the big difference coming through T3. Look how Baptiste Beauvoir is able just to pull into the draft there and pretty much not feel the effects. The tyre grip is so different. Heavy braking now into T4 again, just getting closer all the time, but just able to carry so much more speed there through the apex than Mangano is in front. Will he go for an attack down here at T5? No, thinks better of it, though. I think it is going to be coming very soon. Look at that, yeah, on the exit of T5, he's pulling alongside as they come up in towards the climb. Once again through into the left-hander of turn 7 and turn 8. Side by side they go. Beauvoir, like candy from a baby, into P3 now on the penultimate lap of this race. That was a brilliant move there, and I don't think Mangano is going to have anything in his locker to be able to attack unless he thinks about a lunge down in towards turn number 10. Hard on the brakes they go, and Beauvoir has timed this very well indeed. He was a hot pick going into this race, Jimmy, and he's looking very calm and controlled in these closing stages. Yeah, a good strategy there from Beauvoir. I'm not sure if he thought he could win this race on pace, so he's tried something a bit different. It seems to be working for him. Again, bear in mind, I was going to say our top 2 have to pit for the hard tyre, so Kevlam is in. We'll see Gallo come in as well for the hard compounder tyre, and Beauvoir is going to have a flying finish. Also, fuel quite low there as well, Tom. I was just saying, yeah, I was literally just about to say they have to take a bit of fuel on board here because they've been really pushing quite hard. So we mentioned fuel might not be a strategy, but what about Beauvoir? Where is he going to come out in relation to Kevlam? Kevlam comes out of the pit lane then on the hard tyres. Beauvoir and Gallo just in front there of Beauvoir, so Kevlam and Gallo come out ahead, but they're on the hard tyres. Beauvoir is on the soft tyres. He'll be significantly faster, but is he going to be able to have anything to do? I think he might have a chance maybe at Gallo if he has a really good first sector, but I think Kevlam might just be a little bit too far up the road here. So on board then with third place Baptiste Beauvoir charging through the field in these late stages of this race on the soft compound. Valerio Gallo in front of us, you can just see him there to the left-hand side of your screen on the hard compounder tyre, running a lot slower than Beauvoir, who's really pushing this GTR at the moment to try and gain as much of a gap as possible to the back of the Italian driver in front. It's going to really come down to line. I think Red Kevlam, if he keeps it clean, is going to be coming away from the win here, but it's going to be a battle. The battle for seconds is going to go all the way down to the flag. Out of turn 9 they go, down in towards turn number 10. I don't know if he's going to have any chance to attack Beauvoir. He's coming towards the end of this lap, and it's so much one at a time through there unless he thinks about a lunge into the chicane. But there can be no question that this man here, Rick Kevlam, has dominated this race from start to finish. He has led every single lap, and shy of taking the fastest lap in this race, he has driven to perfection at every single opportunity. Around the final corner comes Rick Kevlam from the Netherlands, and he takes the win in the top 16 Superstars Nations Cup race here for the EMEA region. Valerio Gallo holds on to P2 ahead of that brilliant strategy from Baptiste Beauvoir, securing him P3 on the penultimate lap ahead of Giorgio Mangano. Marcus Connaughton comes home P5. The British driver Will Murdoch in P6 as the rest of the field come over the timing line, and that was a very exciting race right to the very end there, Jimmy. great to see the extra stop come into play there. That was a really interesting level of strategy there. But I think that Beauvoir actually ran out of fuel right at the end, Tom, because he was really slowing down, trying to save a bit of fuel. Just couldn't quite gain on Gallo. But a really good job there by the Frenchman. And such a different strategy to come home only a couple of seconds behind the leaders. I think that worked out fairly well.
Yeah, not bad at all from those drivers. Carlos Salazar, he'll be left ruining the day down in P13. But a hugely impressive race then from those drivers. You can see confirmation of the results on your screen. Kevelim, Gallo, Beauvoir is your podium. Beauvoir with the fastest lap in that race, a 1:34.3. That is mega pace on those soft tyres. He really got that hooked up well. Mangano and Connaughton in the top 5. Then Murdoch, Marcus Fenoy and Jose Serrano doing it proud for Spain inside the top 10 down in P8. Scabilia and Grady inside the top 10 as well. Then Dembilio. Moisov didn't work out for him. As we said, Carlos Salazar down in P13 and Marcus Nicolussi, the Austrian driver, in P14 there as well. Well, a very impressive result for all of our drivers in the top 16 Superstars race for the EMEA region. So a brilliant Nations Cup race we've just had for the top 16 Superstars. I'm delighted to be joined by the winner of that one, Rick Kevelim. Rick, hugely impressive performance. You didn't put a foot wrong in that race. How was it for you?
Yeah, I was very nervous before the start. The qualifying was so close, like 18 thousandths between me and the third place. So yeah, the whole race was just very tense for me.
It was really impressive, and your strategy seemed to work really well against the other competitors. What do you think it was that gave you the edge in the Nations Cup race?
Yeah, I knew there was a lot of dirty air with these cars, so basically it was hard for them to follow me. And I was just looking every lap what the others were doing in terms of strategies and tires, trying to not let them get an undercut, and yeah, it worked in the end.
It worked quite well. And just on a personal level, how are you dealing with the coronavirus situation and the lockdown at the moment? Is everything okay from your side?
Yeah, for me it's okay, but it's a little bit difficult to work for my school, for example. But yeah, I hope it will be better soon.
Plenty of time to get practicing on Gran Turismo then.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good thing.
Good stuff. Well, Rick, thank you very much for catching up with us. All the very best of luck for the online series and hopefully the top 16 Superstars in the future. And hopefully the next time we talk will be under some good circumstances.
Yes, I hope the same. Thanks.
If you'd like to take part in the online series for the FIA Gran Turismo Championships, you firstly have to enter sport mode on GT Sport. You can represent your country or territory as part of that. We've got 3 stages for the online season. Stage 1 is in April and May, Stage 2 June, July, Stage 3 July and August, and then our top 16 Superstars races are below. The drivers from the highest points from each region will be selected for the top 16 Superstars races, and there are 5 regions in total. So our focus shifts over to the Manufacturers Series then, in stark contrast to the Nations Cup that we had just a couple of moments ago. We are in Group 3 machines at the Dragon Trail Seaside circuit. And Jimmy, that's a circuit that really does not reward mistakes at all, does it?
No, not at all. And Dragon Trail is a circuit that we've seen a few times, of course, over at our World Tour events, usually as a finale of some sort. A fictional circuit, but that goes over at Polyphony and situated fictionally, of course, just off the coast there in Croatia. Just over 5Ks in length of this circuit. And let's talk about overtaking spots. T1, probably the best one down there. I guess it's actually T2 before the little chicane. You can get a great run off T17, slipstream all the way down there and make a move there. Also down at T12 as well, down the hill, we saw a great move there from Blajan back in Sydney. I wonder if we see anything similar to that today. Elevation isn't a big deal around here, apart from the drop down to T12, and of course that infamous chicane of death at the bottom there. Let's not ask Blajan about that one though.
Yeah, it's not his favourite part on the lap. I think it's probably fair to say, Jimmy. Unfortunately there for Patrick Blajan. Hopefully our competitors will have a bit of a better luck in the Manufacturers Series here today. Speaking of our competitors, we caught up with them to find out the secrets of this Dragon Trail Seaside circuit.
This is a really difficult track.
This weekend it's going to be testing everybody's commitment.
One of the most beautiful original track we had in all Gran Turismo.
It's a track that you have a lot of slow corners in compared to the others.
All the corners you really need to nail around that track. And when you get it right, it feels so good.
The curbs are so big that you can really once out with the car. You've got to know which ones you can use and which ones you can't.
For me, the best overtaking spot on Dragon Trail will be the first braking, where you have time to take the slipstream and then overtake your opponent on the braking.
Fastest part, I think, is the second sector, because you have 3 corners in a row that they are so fast. You have to be gentle.
It's downhill, you can get a good slipstream there and make the move.
Most challenging corner is probably Death Chicane.
The wall of death chicane.
The chicane of death.
The fast chicane before the last corner.
Everybody knows it, everybody's died at it.
If you touch the wall a little, then you lose like 15 seconds.
You always have a little bit of fear when you approach this corner.
Mainly because of the curbing. If you turn in just a bit too late or just a bit too early, you're going to clip barrier, and that's your lap over or race over.
It is so key to make a good run through that corner to be able to get a fast lap time and to be able to pass people in the race.
The guy in front gets slightly bad run out of the fast chicane, you can get a run into him into the last corner.
If you make the slightest mistake, you will crash and you will burn.
Yeah, really tricky.
So then to the grid for the Manufacturers Series Top 16 Superstars race, and here is how they all line up then. A flash of the lights there from our driver in second position, but it's Will Murdoch from Great Britain in the Honda NSX who lines up on pole. Alongside him on the front row is Mr. Flashy Lights himself, Mikhail Hizal from Turkey in the Subaru WRX. Second row is Skabilia, the Frenchman in the Lamborghini Huracan. And alongside him is Valerio Gallo in the Honda NSX, very distinct livery on his machine in P4. McGinn lines up in P5, the British driver in the Toyota. And alongside him is Tom Lartieu, the Frenchman, who we know did some very good things for Mercedes-Benz last year. He's with Mazda in 2020. His fellow Frenchman, Baptiste Beauvoir, heads to the next row of the grid in P7 for Mercedes-Benz. And then Eduardo Simmers in P8 in the Porsche 911 RSR. Deckers lines up in 9th position in the Ferrari 458 Italia. And rounding out the top 10 is Dilly, also in the Mercedes-Benz. So 2 Mercedes battling in this race could be interesting. Deschamps in P11 in the Nissan GTR. Again, very nice livery on that car. Ithar Zugasa, the Volkswagen, lines up in P12. P13 is Jose Brea in the Alfa Romeo. Not so quick in Group 3 compared to Turi, but let's see how he gets on. Serrano, his countryman, lines up, I should say, in P14. And the final row of the grid is Jose Lopez in the Alfa Romeo also. And lining up at the back is Swiderek, the Polish driver, in the Lamborghini Huracan. So an interesting mix of machinery here, Jimmy. What do we reckon?
Well, it seems that NSX at the front is really quite quick around here. It's been quick in general in the last few races, so good to see it out there again as well. Of course, Mick Hizal, as always, repping Subaru there in second position. Let's quickly look at the tyre strategies on the left here. Seeing only one driver going for that soft tyre at the start of the race, and that is Jose Brea, all the way down in 13th place, whereas our leader, Mr. Murdoch there, has opted for the medium, Hizal on the hard. So probably going to see Mick drop back a little bit at the start there, but we'll see what sort of strategy he's playing with today.
We're expecting 3 to 4, potentially 5 stop strategies in this race, and that is going to be interesting to see how it will get on. Drivers may need to take some fuel on board toward the end of this race as well. But rounding the final corner now is Will Murdoch in the Honda NSX, the top 16 Superstars race for the EMEA region. The Manufacturers Series is about to get underway as the field gets ready to head over the timing line for the first time of 18 then. Murdoch in the NSX leads the field over as we get the race underway here in the Manufacturer Series. So that long run down towards the first corner is going to be very interesting as everybody tries to get into the slipstream. You can see Skabilia there weaving, trying to break the slipstream of his driver from behind. But through the first turn, Murdoch does hold on, as you would begin to expect, then hard on the brakes in towards that first corner. Hizal, as you said, Jimmy, already falling into the clutches of Skabilia, and Gallo in P3 and P4 here.
From what I've seen in previous races, that Impreza is fairly handy in a straight line, so hopefully he'll be trying to keep that position, of course, on the straights and maybe trying to defend coming into the midsection here. We've got Skabilia in front of us. We're on board now with Valerio Gallo in the Honda NSX. Of course, another NSX currently leading the field, so really he wants to be at the front of that field, not here in 4th position. A great onboard camera, though, showcasing our second sector here at Dragon Trail. Very fast section. You want to use the curbs to help hook the car around here. Then we go back downhill towards regards one of the best overtaking spots on the circuit. Let's see if Skabila in front. Skabila, wants to have a go at Hizal. Let's have a look to the inside here. Probably going to get past late on the brakes there. Tire advantage. Skabila up into second position.
Nice job there from the Frenchman into P2, coming in towards that chicane that we know is so tricky to negotiate. Very much want a time through here. Just one simple flick of the steering wheel as we look at Valerio Gallo. You can see that on board. Bit of a clip from the wall on the outside there of Skabila. That upsets his line through the next part of the corner. Just allows Mikael Hizal to close up by a couple of car lengths. Meanwhile, here is Gallo. Is he going to think about a move down into that final corner? You can guarantee he is. He's hard on the brakes. He's on the inside of the Turkish driver. Side by side they go. NSX versus WRX, and it's Valerio Gallo into P3, and Mikael Hizal sensibly trying to get off that hard tyre as soon as he possibly can. All the hard tyres drivers following exactly the same strategy pretty much.
I think did a good job there to actually let him through, because otherwise he would have to go side by side, then try and cut over to the pit lane, which is on the opposite side of the car, which we've seen a couple of times happen before, and usually ends in tears. So I guess a little bit of foresight there from our 2019 Nations Cup champion. Meanwhile, Valerio Gallo there in the NSX. Of course, as we said before, he's the second Honda in the field. So for him, really, he needs to be ahead of Murdoch, who's currently leading this race. So not a difficult shoes to try and fill there.
I'll tell you one thing I'm impressed with, though, is Lamborghini, Skabila, Thomas Skabila in P2. When was the last time we saw Lamborghini at the sharp end of the grid, Jimmy? It's been a while.
Sorry, I'm just looking at that picture of Mick there in the back of the car. That's a nice livery there.
Is that Nico Rosberg on the rear wing as well?
I think that is a creative livery there from Mr. Murdoch. Thank you for that. Thank you for the laugh. But yeah, Lamborghini, to get back to what you were saying, Tom, nice to actually see them somewhat competitive. It's been a brand that we've not really seen at many of the World Tour events. If they are there, they're usually towards the back. Great to see him here fighting up front in that Huracan again. I remember once upon a time the Lambo was the car to have, so that's basically how BOP works. It ebbs and flows in your favour or against you, and right now it's working in the favour of Lamborghini and Skabila, who's now pulling in behind Murdoch in the NSX as we come round to come on to our third lap. These guys are all on the medium compound tyre. Our first runner on a different compound is Jose Brea, who's started on that soft compound, down in 9th position.
Yeah, I want to watch Jose Brea actually, because he's down in 9th position, as you said, but making a good ascension through the field. Jose Lopez, Swiderick also into the pit lane then, from the hard to the medium compound tyres. Here's Skabila up the inside of Murdoch for the race lead at the chicane then. Lovely bit of driving there, but is Murdoch going to try and pounce back on the exit? This is a fantastic camera angle, giving a brilliant sense of speed as they come down in towards the right-handed flick. You can really commit the car through there. Murdoch commits a bit too much and gets a little bit out of shape, but Skabila holds on to that race lead, and Murdoch doesn't lose too much ground here, crucially. The thing is, if they're squabbling amongst one another, it's just allowing Valerio Gallo to close up incrementally behind them as well, and they need to keep an eye out as well for McGinn, who is there in P4 in that Toyota. He could potentially be ready to get himself involved here, but that is a nice little scrap going on for this race lead, and from being a two-way scrap, it's looking set, if Gallo continues the pace that he's running, to potentially become a three-way scrap before long.
It could do, of course, and these guys have to be careful with those sort of things, because there are different strategies at play here, and ideally, until you start getting to the last few laps of the race, you don't want to be holding each other up with squabbling. As long as the guy in front of you is quick enough, just follow him through. Wow, there, Murdoch is looking quite on edge in this last lap, clipping the curb a bit too much. You can take a lot of curb in these cars, but you can't take all of it. Take all of it, the car will then be ejected, I think is the kind word, and you find yourself off in the gravel. So Murdoch now in a great place to use the draft coming down the straight here on Skabila in that Lamborghini Huracan. Let's see what the NSX has in a straight line though. I think historically not been a car that's been too quick on a straight line, and that Lambo seems much improved from what we're used to. You see that even after that long straight, not quite close enough to make a move. Will he dive to the inside here? Will he wait? No, he stays behind for now, decides it's not worth wasting the time fighting. Look at that train of cars there. We're all the way down to 7th place in your picture.
Yeah, it's a Thomas train at the moment, isn't it, who is leading the way. There's a tank engine joke in there somewhere, I'm sure, for the race leader. Drivers on the move at the moment, though, further down the order, who have made a pit stop. Mikael Hizal and Baptiste Beauvoir in P12 and P13. They're closing the gap down to Tom Lartiu in P11, who actually managed to make the best of those pit stops in the opening stages. Of course, he was a bit further ahead on track, but you can see how close they are lining now. Under a second, it sits between Hizal and Lartiu, and and fewer than 4/10 of a second between Hizal and Baptiste Beauvoir here. So it's looking pretty close between them. Very different machinery as well for Tom Lartiu this year. As I mentioned earlier on, he was in Mercedes-Benz last year. Now he's with Mazda in Group 3 machinery. Is it going to be a move that pays off for him? Let's wait and see.
Yeah, it's hard to make those predictions, of course, because the way these cars are balanced have changed constantly. But there's always a little bit of strategy to even the manufacturer you pick. Because if you say pick a manufacturer that is really very quick, like
Hizal's had a shape
last year, mistake there from Hizal, and immediately he gets off the line and lets Baptiste Beauvoir through. I think maybe trying to lose a little bit less time there just by letting him through and drafting him down the straight. But that goes to show just how on edge they are through that section of the circuit. Really easy to pick a bit of curb there, attack the wall and upset the car in quite a dramatic way. But the point I was trying to make before is that if you maybe pick a car that's very, very popular, then you're going to find the competition to actually get through and represent that brand is a lot greater than if you picked maybe a car like a Mazda who aren't quite as well represented. And even if you finish a bit further down the field, you could still be that driver. That represents that team. It's a little bit convoluted sometimes to think about, but there is definitely strategy to it. Meanwhile, front of the grid, Skabila still leading this massive train.
Yeah, it really is quite pronounced now for Skabila here, coming through that left-hander with Murdoch, Gallo, McGinn, Simers very close behind, and Decker's also not too far adrift of this squabbling, as well as Dilly in P7. So this is looking pretty interesting here for Skabila. He's on the medium compound of tyres. In terms of lap times, last time around, he was as fast as Murdoch, really. He was keeping a consistent pace. He just doesn't have anything in the locker to be able to pull away. Of course, strategy is going to come into play very shortly as well. They've got to run all 3 compounds of tyre in this race, just to remind you as well. So they have to run the hards, the medium and the soft. Murdoch, they're clipping the wall on the outside through the first part of that chicane. That'll compromise his run through the second part and indeed up this straight as well. However, it is worth thinking about strategy, because that is going to be very interesting. Just to remind you, the drivers from P11 down to P16 have made 1 pit stop here so far. Nobody else on circuit currently has. So who is going to blink first in the strategy?
Yeah, Murdoch there taking a lot more apex speed than Skabila in front there, but I think that's just the difference between the cars. It's a great thing about the manufacturer series. I say it's every time we commentate on it, Tom, that it's just such a variation between the strengths and weaknesses of each car, and I think that's even more pronounced when we get to the Group 4 class. But even in Group 3, same sort of thing. Cars have different strengths and weaknesses. You're seeing that Skabila really struggles in apex speed and exit, where Murdoch really excels, but doesn't quite have the grunt in the NSX to do anything about it. So it really is an awesome thing to watch.
See Skabila just getting a little bit out of shape on the exit of that right-handed flick there, as he's really trying and just build a bit of pace, build a bit of a gap to Murdoch, but whatever he does, Murdoch just responds beautifully, and he's now closer than ever coming through these S-bends. This is the advantage of the Group 3 cars compared to the Group 2 machinery we saw in the Nations Cup very a short while ago, is that they're just able to run that little bit closer. There's still a dirty air that comes into effect, but they're just, in those S-bends in particular, able to run that little bit closer, that little bit faster to one another, not lose too much time and too much downforce, crucially, as well. So the top 3 with a little bit of a gap there back to McGinn in P4, but still running very close on circuit. And again, this is what we were talking about in the Nations race, sorry, I should say, earlier on, Jimmy, is that these drivers are just able to run so close to one another. There's such an amount of respect and trust between all of them.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with these guys is they've been racing each other in some form or another for quite a while now, of course. You tend to find that you meet the same guys on track every time you jump into a session, as Murdoch there peels into the pit lane. So as you said, they're all very familiar with each other. Murdoch going for the soft compound of tyre now, so opting for a fast middle stint. But something else I was going to say, Tom, is something that I really enjoy about these races is to see the variation in liveries and paints in these cars. I mean, Murdoch probably is the exception with his mean livery, but the rest of them, like something that I wish we could see more at live events is a bit of a variation in livery, because these guys, they all belong to teams. You know, they all belong to esports teams. And that's part of what sim racing is nowadays. So it'd be great to see more of that in the
there for
events.
McGinn.
Yes, McGinn. Off
That's
he goes.
McGinn,
yeah,
who goes off the circuit. Yeah, he's going to lose out to Deckers here and potentially Dilly as well. That's really compromised him. Sorry to cut in front of you there, Jimmy, but he just ran it a bit wide through that right-handed kink. And I said there was commitment through there, just a little bit too much commitment, bit too much speed. And he has now dropped 3-4 positions as a result of that mistake.
He's still in it. He's still in the group, thankfully, but he'll be kicking himself for that. Very easy mistake to make there is to take too much curb on the entrance there. And then you run yourself out of room on the exit, and that's what happened to McGinn as we come down to T7. Meanwhile, it looks like Deckers and Simos are having a bit of a fight at the moment.
That's a nice little battle there, and he's now ahead is Deckers, so the Dutchman moves ahead of the Portuguese driver into P3. That's very handy indeed. What that's allowed actually here, Jimmy, is this group to just close up a little bit, and now they're starting to squabble amongst one another. That mistake there from McGinn is going to have the red mist descended, and he's already trying to pounce back and attack, but he's being attacked meanwhile by Itharsu Gassa as P4 is now being challenged there for Dilly, who moves ahead of Simuers. So out of the final corner, bit of contact between them, bit of bumper rubbing on the exit there. Deckers comes into the pit lane. Dilly does get ahead of Simos then.
A little bit cheeky by Dilly there. Ran him off the road, I think, at that point. Should have given him a little bit more space, but pass, he's through now. Rubbing his racing, as they say. So through goes Dilly up into P3. Now, Tom, as the king of sportsmanship, what do you make of that, mate?
Well, you know, it's harsh but fair. The main thing with sportsmanship is you want to avoid doing things that makes you look bad, to be honest with you, and that's, of course, avoiding contact and becoming a missile, crucially. Nobody became a missile as a result of that overtake there, Jimmy. I think it was harsh but fair is probably the best way I'd put it. I think you should tell us after Gaz that about looking bad driving that drop-top VW there. That's not the prettiest car out there, I can say that right now. But it's got a face only a mother could love, is probably the expression. And not even the mother, I think, at this point. But as we come down now towards the hill, again, a great overtaking spot this. Now, McGinn's going to have the bit between his teeth now. You get the old red mist descend when you're out there, and that can go one or two ways. You can either find speed that you didn't think you had, or you can find the wall a little bit quicker than you found it before. So we'll see what sort of driver now McGinn is under pressure. But he is now looking at the three drivers, the three positions that he lost due to his mistake a couple of laps ago. So always a bit of a tough pill to swallow. That one is Sparks being kicked up by the cars in front and almost touching the wall on the left there. It's such a great sensation of speed round here, and it's Artugaza, I think, wanting to just leave a little bit of paint there for some reason. But yeah, Dragon Trail, it's definitely a circuit of two flavours. You've got the fast-flowing traditional circuit and then a street circuit in the second half. All into the pit lane come the drivers then inside the top 6 positions. So 3rd, 4th and 5th into the pits then. McGinn goes from the mediums to the hard combat of tyres, as do Dilly and Simos. Itharsu Gassa, the only one who is changing the form book, going from the mediums to the soft combat of tyres. Now, where do they emerge on track? Here is Deckers, and he has done a brilliant job of the undercut there. He's been able to leapfrog this group here, Jimmy. So that's where he was before he peeled into the pit lane. He's been able to hold that position crucially.
Yeah, that's what you would have wanted. You want to have that free space in front of you there and just get on with it, essentially. Now, I've noticed that Murdoch, who's now running in 4th position on that soft compound of tyres, actually pulled up now to the back of this little group. He's ahead of Mick Hazal, who's also pitted as well. I think actually he's got past Hazal, who's been running around on that medium compound, and now he's looking to try and get past 3rd and 2nd. At the moment, Scabilia, who hasn't pitted, is out front, but all the time he's out front now and these guys are on fresh tyres, he's going to be losing time. So you've got Mick Hazal there, and that aerial, I thought that was some sort of joystick there on the front of your picture, but it's an aerial of the car as we, of course, our camera turns around with it. Coming now down to the bottom of the hill, and this Subaru, it used to be a bit of a handling machine, but due to the recent BOP, it's turned into a bit of a straight line monster instead. So interesting to see Mick, of course, staying with them regardless. Oh, it's so tight through there. A bit of a wiggle there from Baptiste profile. It's the last thing you want to see from the car in front of you when you're following so closely is to have them made a mistake. He's now coming up on Tom Lartiu, so he's going to give him a little bit of a push there coming into the braking zone. Don't want to do that too late, or you might push him a little bit away, or maybe that's what he's trying. Let's see.
Yeah, absolutely right. So Lartiu comes into the pit lane here, as does Beauvoir, and it looks like the Porsche driver... Lartiu, Beauvoir, Brea, Gallo, Hazal into the pit lane here as Dilly, Simos. So everybody's on the hard tyre that changed over in that middle stint there, Jimmy. They want to get off of that, understandably, get onto the soft tyre, get on the quicker tyre towards the closing stages of this race, and then maybe change to the mediums.
Yeah, fuel going in too as well. Another strategy element of this race is to make sure that you have actually got enough fuel in the car to get by. I think they've all fueled to the end, those who have done. may have been slightly different strategy there as well. Of course, the less fuel you use when you're out there on the circuit, the less fuel you've got to put in the car to get to the end as well. But of those who have made 2 pit stops so far, our leader is Mick Hazal. Those in front still need to make stops, so there's quite a big gap now between these guys and the rest of them, but there has been a fuel stop made. The rest as well, I think, are going to have to do that, come in, take quite a considerable amount of fuel, and then stay stationary. So actually this is probably a good chance for people like Hazal, Gallo and Beauvoir now on that soft compound to get out there and really put in some quick lap times, really make the most of the fresh soft tyre.
Yeah, I was just about to say, isn't it, having a bit of clean air is going to be the time to do that, and that is where we expect the race to sort of, it quietens down a little bit in the mid stages and then comes alive towards the end as all these strategies begin to play out. You can see everybody on your screen on that tower graphic is on the soft compound of tyres. Only Skabilia and Breyer on the hard tyre, Swiderick and Lopez on the mediums. They're out of sync at the moment, having only made the 1 pit stop, of course, there. What is Mikael Hazal going to be able to do then? Just in the forefront of your shot, you can see Itharzu Gasser, and well, he's only made the 1 pit stop here as well, as we can see, coming under the tunnel and in towards that final corner. It's looking interesting here for Mikael Hazal. I'm going to keep a keen eye on the lap times as things go. As you can see, Skabilia, Swiderick and Lopez coming into the pit lane then. So they're going to make their pit stops. Lopez, Breyer and Swiderick, I should say. Skabilia holds on for another lap. So mediums to softs then for Jose Lopez, the Spaniard, as does Swiderick. He goes for the same strategy. Jose Breyer, again, he started on the soft tyre, let's not forget. He's gone from the hards to the medium tyre. Where is he going to emerge? Here comes Lopez out of the pit lane. It's going to be behind this group, just behind us, side by side with Serrano, but loses out towards the closing stages. So he's now the meat in the Spanish sandwich there. Is Jose Lopez, and not doing too bad of a job down there in P13, but we know that Alpha 4C, Jimmy, it's not necessarily the fastest car in Group 3 trim.
Yeah, he's a Hamon Iberico is what he is at the moment. As you watch the guys go down the hill. So Zazu Gaza now, this is interesting. He is yet to make his 2nd pit stop, and Hazal behind him in the Subaru there wants to get by. He needs to get by quickly, and the fact that he's not made the 2nd pit stop, Zazu Gaza, means that his soft tyres now they're worn. He's going to be a lot slower than the cars behind. So all the time Hazal is stuck behind, and that's going to allow Gallo to get closer, Beauvoir to get closer, and importantly, it's going to allow Murdoch and Skabilia to make a bit more of a gap at the front before their stop.
Yeah, this is a crucial thing. I'm glad I've got you here, Jimmy, to dissect all these strategies, because I'd be struggling to keep up with it myself. You can see here Hazal going for a move against Itharzu Gasser, side by side, nearly down in towards that final corner. Surely Hazal is going to find his way past. He does hold on the brakes. Itharzu Gasser does not put up too much of a fight, and sensibly so. Skabilia is in the pit lane, then from the hards to the soft compound of tyres for his middle stint in this race. And now Hazal can put his foot to the floor and hopefully try and build out a gap to the fellow competitors and just give himself a bit of breathing space. But you know that Itharzu Gasser is not going to take it too much of a lying down in towards that chicane. He thinks about getting quite close, but isn't quite close enough to make a move. And let's see whether he is going to try and fight his way back against the Turkish driver.
So it looks like Mikael has basically come out in the overall lead. It depends on what sort of gap Murdoch can make, and really now Murdoch needs to pit in. He needs to come into the pits now, and he's going to be losing time to Hazal all the way through. Well, saying that, Murdoch's gone quite far on his fuel. He's on lap 12 right now. Everyone else had to come in and pit at this point, so he is going to have a shorter stop in the pit lane, but he is of course going to suffer because of those tyres. So that maybe was his strategy, was to go as long as he could, try and keep the tyres alive as long as he could, try and keep the pace as long as he could, and then pit in towards the end and have a shorter stop to try and maintain some of the gap he's built up. It's 14 seconds, give or take a couple of attempts at the moment, between 1st and 2nd place. So we'll see what sort of time that pit stop takes away. So here is Murdoch right now. He's at the front of the field in the NSX. Will he peel over to the right-hand side of the circuit into the pit lane? Let's see.
He does. He
does. So he comes into the pit lane. Let's see now what the gap is when he's all done. So he's all 2 litres of fuel there into the pit lane. So really running that thing dry. It's going to be... we'll see how much fuel he puts in.
pretty fine there for Murdoch then. He's, as you say, putting fuel in. He's going to the soft compound of tyres once again. Hizal is going to go through then, surely, about Lartia. There is Hizal just coming out of the pit lane exit, and he's going to lose out to Hizal. He's going to lose out to Itharsu Gassa, but he's going to draw alongside with Baptiste Beauvoir. Very close indeed. Beauvoir's got the closing speed. He's going to go to the inside. Is Beauvoir here? Side by side they come. Hard on the brakes, but he chops the nose off of the Frenchman. Does Will Murdoch. That is fantastic defensive driving, and he just holds on that position. So that was a very well-timed pit stop there. Any more fuel he'd taken on board and he could have been set to lose 2, maybe even 3 positions, but it's worked out very nicely for him indeed.
I think Beauvoir just crowded Murdoch a bit too much there going into the braking zone. He had the overspeed. He could have quite easily pulled past the English driver, but I think he just tried to crowd him a bit, and as a result had to get on the brakes, otherwise he would have ran into the back of him. The speed difference was so great, having with Murdoch just coming out the pit lane, of course. But importantly for Murdoch, he does have a fresher set of tyres than everybody else around him. His Artsugasa in front still needs to make his pit stop, so he's going to tumble down the field once that happens. This strategy has not worked out for the VW driver, I can tell you that now for free, which is going to allow the space between himself and Hizal to be, to be vacated, and hopefully he can drive into it and catch up the Turkish driver.
So through that chicane we go, riding on board here with Valerio Gallo, threading the eye of a needle, clipping the wall there briefly on the outside, not losing too much time there. Tom Lartiu just in the forefront of his shot. Baptiste Beauvoir, though, you can see on the left-hand side of your screen on that tower graphic, when their time to the difference to the driver in front of them goes green, it means they're gaining on that driver. It means that gap is decreasing, essentially. So you can see Beauvoir is just closing that gap down to Will Murdoch. It now sits at 0.6 of a second. It was a lot less than that this time, 1 lap ago, but still Beauvoir. Now he's got a bit of composure, a bit more rhythm back behind him. Seems to be doing quite nicely here of just closing that gap down to Murdoch in 3rd position. This is the battle effectively for 2nd place here, Jimmy, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, as we said, you can see in the column there, just to the right of the tyre compound, there's Artsugasa has a 1 there. It means he's stopped only once. He does need to stop again, so he has to make another pit stop, and that will then release this train behind him. And importantly for Murdoch, really, he needs to get by quickly. I said that the pace, though, of the VW driver is still fairly decent, given the tyres he's on a quite old, quite second-hand by this point, but he's still keeping decent pace out there. So, really, you must think, what if he had a better strategy? He might have ended up actually being here on merit as opposed to due to pit stops. But it happens sometimes, and you learn from it, as Murdoch, again, draws ever closer to the VW driver. Will he get by before he pits, I wonder?
Yeah, that is a crucial question. Just coming in towards that chicane. He's just losing time now, isn't he, really, Murdoch? He's just hemorrhaging it, and that's not going to help him in that trying to defend Baptiste Beauvoir into the back of the wall. There goes Tom Lartiu in the background of your shot, and that has cost the French driver dear. He loses out to Valerio Gallo, so a simple mistake there from the Frenchman has now cost him P5 and potentially P6 here as Skabilia, his fellow compatriot, goes up the inside into P6 then. So Lartiu, a simple mistake there, as we said, has now cost him 2 positions. So that is disappointment there for him, because he was running quite well actually up until that point.
Yeah, he was, but it can go that way. You've got to be careful of those walls there. It's called the chicane of death for a reason. Got to respect it, otherwise you end up losing time like that. And you see Murdoch, I was watching the gap down the straight. He was within a tenth the entire way down the straight, but just could not gain on his Artsugasa. The NSX just doesn't have that grunt in a straight line. You need to go for it here. Oh, he needs to just send it at this point. He needs to chuck it up the inside and have it done with. But saying that, they're both catching Hizal at front. Hizal isn't there. You go. Murdoch goes for it now, slides up the inside. There you go. I think his Artsugasa kind of saw it coming and thought, you know what, fair enough. I can't defend this much longer. And that releases Murdoch in the NSX now to chase down Mick Hizal in the Subaru in front. So it's going to be a straight fight now to the end with 3.5 The Subaru in front, so it's going to be a straight fight now to the end with 3.5 laps to go.
Nicely done there for Murdoch. And Ithar Sugasa just not putting up too much of a fight there. Sensible, really, from the Spaniard. He knows he's not involved in this same battle. He's going to go surely onto that hard tyre in the closing stages of this race. That's his most sensible bet, I would say. Here is Baptiste Beauvoir then, just beginning to put the pressure onto the back of Ithar Sugasa. As we mentioned, the Spaniard out of position, coming through that chicane. He's clipped the wall there as Murdoch, though he's lost out massively there, and that is going to cost him potentially a podium here as well. He's definitely lost out for second place. Ithar Sugasa now having to defend from Beauvoir, but he's not going to be able to do so. Beauvoir goes up the inside through into P2, so now it's the Frenchman who's going to try and have to close things down to Mikael Hazal instead of Will Murdoch. So a simple mistake there, as we were mentioning, Jimmy. We saw Lartiu doing it last time around. Now Murdoch makes the same mistake and he loses out.
I think he's basically just gifted Hazal the win there. That was his race to take, Murdoch. He has so much pace in the NSX, but just one little mistake and that's all it costs. But of course, it isn't all about out-and-out pace in these races. You've got to be consistent, you've got to be clean, and the old adage of in order to finish first you have to finish. And doing stuff like that, well, yeah, not ideal.
That is an example of doing things that makes you look bad, unfortunately, there for Will Murdoch. Now in P4, effective P3, of course, because we know that Ithar Sugasa has got to make that one final pit stop. Good little battle going on for the top 5 here as well. Valerio Gallo, Scabilia and Tom Lartiu all line astern, very close between one another. This is nice to see in the final few laps of this race. All the drivers have made their respective pit stops now in that little battle at the moment. And now Murdoch is going to have to watch his mirrors ever so slightly, because he is going to come under a bit of pressure here from Valerio Gallo, Scabilia and potentially Lartiu if he is not too careful. There is the battle going on as we can see it on your screen at the moment. And, well, this could get quite interesting, because for a potential battle for the race win here for Murdoch, he's now falling into the clutches of the top 5.
Yeah, I mean, it can change oh so easily around here, of course, and that's just an example of what can happen. Murdoch does still have pace, he's still quick. Maybe confidence has been dented a little bit, though, and he hasn't got that toe down the straight he had before. That was keeping him in check as well with the guys at the front. And Ithar Sugasa still staying out the pits. I'm not quite sure how big is that fuel tank in that VW. He must have fueled up on his first stop right to the brim.
Yeah, it must be wheel arches full of fuel probably there for Ithar Sugasa. He's doing an impressive job, I've got to say, but we know that he's going to drop down quite significantly through the order. Even if he does just do a splash and dash on this penultimate lap, he'll have to make a pit stop, of course, as we know, to the end of this one. A little bit wide there in the background there for Valerio Gallo as well against Scabilia, and that is going to potentially cost him a little bit of drive. Is that going to allow the Frenchman to attack into that right-hander? Not quite close enough, I don't think, through there. He lives to fight another day, does the Italian driver, for now, as things stand. But this is going to get very interesting indeed. Murdoch has just been able to bring a bit of daylight between himself and that battle for P4 and P5, but it's P5 and P6 we're keeping a close eye on now, because Gallo has got Scabilia all over his back like a bad rash as they come through the left-hander over the brow of the hill. Is Scabilia going to think about a move? He certainly is. He pulls out of the slipstream. Gallo goes defensive. Side by side they come as they go hard on the brakes. Is he going to be able to go the long way around the outside? The Frenchman versus the Italian. That'll be a brave move if he can hold it through there. Still side by side they run on the exit. Gallo's got the inside line for the next right-hander, but Scabilia, if he can hold it, if he can be brave around the outside, he can, and he moves into P5. What a move for the Lamborghini driver. He's through into the top 5 on the penultimate lap. Fantastic.
Yeah, Gallo had to be sensible there. He knew that it was going to be one at a time through the chicane, so I think did the better thing there and just backed out of it, just lived to fight another day. And that's allowed, of course, Lartiu behind now to get back involved. So Murdoch in... Oh, Murdoch hadn't stopped.
He had no fuel.
Stopped for the hard compounder tyre.
He had no fuel. He had no fuel left. He had 1 litre of fuel left in his car, Jimmy, I think, and he's had to pit on that final lap because he wasn't going to make it to the checkered flag.
Did we miss?
So he
no,
must have
made a third stop.
Yeah, he must have forgotten to fill up then for Murdoch, and that has cost him very dearly here. A very unusual strategy call. Maybe he thought he could save more fuel than he did. He didn't, and he's now dropped down into the lower echelons of the top 10. That's a big shame indeed. Oh, Lartiu getting out of shape as well through that right-hander. But dearie me, I mean, that's gone from bad to worse there for Will Murdoch, hasn't it?
I think maybe that we just missed him. He didn't take the hard tyre. There's a lot of tyre strategy going on right now. You know, there's 16 cars here, and times that by 3 for tyres, and you have me with a big headache not too long afterwards. But we might have missed that for Murdoch, so apologies for that, guys. But yeah, well, there you go. That allows it. Mick Hazal then pretty much just continued unchallenged to the line if he can just keep it clean through chicane one more time. The battle for the last step on the podium though will go down to the wire between Scabilia, Gallo and Lartio. Here's Mick Hazal. Baptiste Beauvoir has closed in, but I don't think he's going to be close enough for a challenge at the end.
No, very close indeed between them towards that final lap, but still 1.1 seconds it sits at. If it went on for another couple of laps longer, you can guarantee Beauvoir in the Mercedes-Benz would have tried to attack. But here, through the final corner, we see the Turkish driver Mikael Hazal taking the spoils for Subaru in the top 16 Superstars race. It's Subaru and Hazal on top in the Manufacturers Series. Beauvoir comes home in second, and Scabilia, I think, is just going to hold on against Valerio Gallo to the line in third place. Brilliant racing there between those guys. Lartio comes home in P5, and that was a hugely exciting race there, Jimmy. What do we think, though, about Will Murdoch and such like? I mean, he had so much promise in that race. A simple mistake for him there, but really interesting as well on his strategy at the end of that.
Yeah, definitely. I said that Schwinderich and Serrano were 300ths apart there at the end. I don't know if you missed that, but that was crazy. but for Murdoch, yeah, I mean, either a bad strategy or just a bad drive. Of course, started on pole, has the fastest lap as well by quite some way over the field there. Actually, apart from Lartier, he was also equally quick, but just didn't quite go off for him.
You can see the results there on your screen. Dilly, Ithar Sugasa, Will Murdoch, fastest lap. Not the fastest result, though, down in P8. Deckers finishes in P9. That's quite disappointing for him. He had good pace, actually, as did Eduardo Simos in P10. Swideric, Serrano, McGinn, Lopez and Breyer in the 4Cs. We didn't expect them to do much, and unfortunately they didn't, down in P15 and P14. And Deschamps down in P16. That concludes the grid then for the Manufacturers Series. Let's go over to talk to our race winner then, shall we? Mikael Hazal. So we've just seen the end of the Manufacturers Series race, and I'm delighted to be joined by the winner of it, Mikael Hazal. Mick, good to have you here. How are you doing? What a great race. That was brilliant, wasn't it?
Yeah, first of all, hey mate, I'm doing fine so far, thank you. Yeah, as I said, the race was so intense. Like, I was having so much fun doing the race in the end. Yeah, I'm just happy.
Nice. It was a really exciting race. How are you dealing, by the way, just on a personal level, with the coronavirus and the situation we've got at the moment? Because it's quite unique, hence why we're talking from thousands of miles apart.
Yeah, like the news are always telling in each day that we have to be aware, like with our surroundings, of not catching the virus in the end. And obviously we all, especially our family, are kind of like trying to not get the virus easily, if you can say that. Like, we are always cautious here. And as for now, we can say that it's all going good for now, but we can't predict the future. And like, hopefully all the circumstances will be better so that we can have some live events for Gran Turismo soon.
Yeah, we hope so, for sure. So on a personal level for you for this year, you've decided to do the Manufacturers Series as opposed to the Nations Cup. Why is that? Due to my studies, I had to find, let's say, a middle way of managing both things so that I can still do my studies in a good way and also do the FIA Gran Turismo Championship on the same time. And basically, after winning the Nations Cup as well as the Supra Cup last year, I decided not to do it for this year, but instead only concentrate myself on the Manufacturers Cup in order to maybe win it in the end. Well, it's certainly going well for a start. What's the plan for the future Top 16 Superstars events for you?
I guess our goal basically with Team Subaru is still keep showing the good amount of results we have recently so that we can still perform very well. And when it comes, let's say, to the most important races, which is the Top 16 one, then basically show our best race on that race so that we can score a lot of points, which is very crucial for the let's say, for the Manufacturers Cup in general.
Nicely done. Mick, great to catch up with you, mate. best of luck for the future. Stay safe, and hopefully next time we'll be talking in better circumstances.
Thank you, Tom, and see you guys.
If you'd like to take part in the Manufacturer Series, then firstly you've got to take part in the online series by entering Sport Mode on GT Sport. You can compete on behalf of your favourite manufacturer as well. There are 3 stages for the online season, as you can see on your screen at the moment, and then if you qualify top in your region, you'll take part in the top 16 Superstars races. The top ranking drivers from each manufacturer will be selected for the top 16 Superstars races, as you can see on your screen at the moment, and the drivers with the highest points in each region, of which there are 5, will be selected for those very races. Well, a really exciting day's worth of racing we've had in the top 16 Superstars here for the EMEA region. Jimmy, what are your highlights?
I think I've got 2 really. One, of course, is Will Murdoch's delivery. That's going to haunt my dreams, I think. And the second one was just the amount of crazy strategy we had in the first race. I think people were doing 4 pit stops, some people even trying 5 pit stops, and it was just really kind of crazy to see that those strategies being explored. I think Miyazono in the World Tour events to blame for that one.
Yeah, it certainly seems to be the case. Right, I'm going to put you on the spot. Driver of the day, who are you going for?
Oh no, done it now. I am going to say, I think Rick Kevelan. I think he did extremely well in that first race, just to basically stay out of trouble. He led from pole position, didn't really look back at any point. The gaps came down to about a second at some point, but otherwise, Slick Rick. No, I'm going to keep saying that until that nickname sticks. So I hope you enjoy that, Rick.
Very impressive stuff. Jimmy, thank you very much indeed for joining us on the Top 16 Superstars broadcast. A pleasure as always. We'll be back for the Top 16 Superstars for round 7 of the championship on the 17th of May. If you need a Gran Turismo fix though, in the meantime, keep in touch with us on our social media channels on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and of course on YouTube as well. And if that's still not enough, then of course Koke Lopez is going to be competing in the Nations Cup this coming Wednesday. A live stream taking place at 9 PM CEST. Whatever you do, be sure to tune into that because it will be a cracker. Anyway, from Jimmy Broadbent and from myself, Tom Brooks, thank you very much indeed for joining us, and we'll see you next time.